first of all,
I'm gonna record, by the way, in case you
yeah.
say something we need to record about.
So since the last time we talked, I did some review of my best ball teams
Mm,
and just to see the makeup. And I was absolutely correct. My best success in best ball, and I'm not talking just the winners, but the higher
mhm.
placing
Right.
teams, were all ones where I Frankensteined the quarterback, and all but one I went with lesser tight ends as well. So what that kind of tells me is that those draft spots that you pass on at other positions are probably key. Um, the only good tight end, like top tight end I had on any of my best ball winners was Trey McBride.
Mhm.
The rest were filled up with Jonnu Smith, Ertz, you know,
Mhm.
guys like that. And Hawkinson was on one of the winners as well, but he didn't contribute much.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to look when you see what's going on and you see that they didn't contribute much to the bottom line.
Mhm.
And I also discovered that I was a little more successful than I thought I was in best ball last year. I actually won money at at underdog, where I
Good.
thought I had lost a few bucks. So it wasn't as much of a disaster in best ball as I
Mhm.
was afraid it had been.
Mhm.
But I think all of the data points will lead me to understanding that and it was weird because the teams where I had McBride only went two tight ends. So if you go elite tight end, better A, hit, and B, not invest more draft capital at the
Mhm.
position. So just interesting. Not a super detailed study, but just a chance to reflect back on what happened is kind of interesting sometimes.
Yeah, I haven't done that. I'm uh right now I think best ball for me is going to be a little bit investment and just assume if I can break even, it's a good year and just
Yeah,
use to kind of warm up. In other words, I guess if I was playing 1,000 leagues or, serious money, then I would approach it completely different. But
yep,
for now, I don't want to spread myself too thin, especially we're still trying to figure out what metrics are going to work and in what proportions, right? We're trying to figure out
correct.
our recipe, Dennis. And if you think about the cooking analogy, that's what we're doing
Yeah,
is how do we make that gumbo? What's proportion of andouille sausage versus the shrimp or something? You gotta have that down, Dennis. How long do you cook your roux? That kind of thing. There's a lot of thoughtful questions that we still have to deal with, and that's the thing. I mean, you win money on the way, but part of me, my thinking, my goal is to have a better gumbo, a metric gumbo for us, and I think everything else will fall into place.
yeah,
I'm afraid if you, and I know people do, it's like at the horse track, right? The first three winners all broke top and led round, gate to wire, and the fourth, fifth, everybody's on those speed horses, and maybe they were just the best in that crew, and speed can obviously has an advantage in a lot of times, but not every time, and so you can get tricked if you start shooting for, oh, I just need to win versus understanding the bigger picture. I think you can really get into some ruts, and all of a sudden You thought you knew it and you don't. And that's why I think the top down and for us, the beta testing is the way to prevent, finding yourself down. Like, well, last year, the top quarterback, was the winner on all my leagues. So therefore, this year I'm going to do
Yes.
whatever. And then all of a sudden it doesn't work this year, and then, I just don't want to be tricked by, patterns and things that are not significant, that may have worked early in the season or late. I want to understand across years and across just understanding the game and the system and breaking it down. So that's what I think we're doing right, is approaching it that way and not just, what was, and you'll see it on Twitter, people that had the top 10 running backs, two of them on their best ball, they won. Well, maybe there was injury. I mean, you can imagine all the different things that could happen to allow that to happen. So if that's your strategy, oh, I'm going to draft two running backs this year. Well, hope they don't get injured, that kind of thing. And uh, you can just be tricked by flash in the pan stats that apply in a short term versus more of a longer term. Imagine, forecasting based on what happened yesterday, not
Oh
worried
yeah.
about
Yeah.
anything else. Just, well, it rained
Persistence
yesterday. So,
forecasting. Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
And versus understanding big picture patterns, year patterns, and lots of data and input. And nobody does that anymore. Nobody in science allows that to happen. They'll notice, hey, this is interesting, but this can't keep going on like this, right? Roulette, it can't just keep hitting red. It's going to hit black at some point, unless the wheel is rigged. That kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think when you grade success or failure in a draft, you cannot do it based on just winning and losing.
No.
You have to do it on how each one of the individual parts performed. And
Yes.
that's where I think, if we analyze our data
Mhm.
and we look at how we approached the draft with the better than zero
Yes.
strategy last year,
Yes.
I there were very few players that there were nobody. There was nobody in the first three rounds that we missed on other than injuries.
Yes.
In the fifth and sixth rounds, we had a couple of misses, and I think we can learn from those because in my case, Pittman, he should not have qualified based on the previous 2 years. I was forecasting improvement and it didn't happen. So, that's where I think looking at that data from the last 2 years, you've got to be really when you're forecasting an improvement, that has to be pretty bulletproof, and if you're wrong about one part, it really, like, the best players, and we saw it this year, Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr., two best rookies at wide receiver.
Yep.
They didn't have the two best quarterbacks.
No.
So the best players are going to be somewhat bulletproof of the other parts and pieces around them. It doesn't mean that with a better quarterback, Malik Neighbors wouldn't have been even better.
Mm-hmm.
But what it means is Pittman showed us who he was. And we probably took him a little early. I know I did because I was expecting him to be better with better quarterback play, and that was probably the wrong strategy. Look at how good Jacoby Myers was with a mishmash at quarterback.
Yes.
So that's where I think understanding the previous 2 years' data and understanding when to forecast improvement and when to let that data carry you is the big thing. And I think I'm going to worry about doing less forecasting and more, um, you know, what has the player proven to us? And until we get past a certain point in the draft, because we saw that. We saw where you get to a certain point in the draft, and if your strategy says I need 4 of the 6 to be positive to draft a player, you would be sitting out of the draft.
Right.
You run out of bulletproof players, and that's when you have to make your correct assumptions on guys improving. But I'm not sure where that magic round is, and we may never really figure that out. Some of that is going to be it's the difference between having a computer model helping you forecast the weather and having that pattern recognition of the whole thing
Right.
that you understand. And for best ball, I think I can still functionally use it the way I've been using it. But after the first 8 rounds, I can adjust the strategy to win money in best ball while still letting it do what it's supposed to do. I think up until that first 8 round period, I'm feeling pretty good about my strategy in either format because I just want the best players available. And last year, my strategy was pretty simple. In the first 4 rounds, I was taking running back or wide receiver. If I didn't have somebody I really liked at that position in the draft, that's when I looked at quarterback or tight end. Otherwise, I was content to say, you know what, I got a good quarterback in the 6th, 7th round. I got a good tight end that I like in the 5th round with Kittle. And that was kind of the strategy that was used. And I think that was a pretty sound way to attack the strategy last year. But
The thought on that kind of brings me into this data that I was telling you about. So this is last year, and this is the weekly sectors, top 12, 13 to 24, 25 to 36, 37 to 48 weekly. And then the position, and then the actual numbers, and then below is the actual percentage in each sector. So the top 12, the best were wide receivers. 34% of the top 12 were wide receivers. 33 were quarterbacks. So that's, what is that? Almost 70% of the top 12. And we're talking some pretty good. I mean, we're talking some outstanding numbers in the top 12. They're
yeah,
beyond, sometimes even beyond the whisker. Versus the running back, and look at the tight end at 5%. So, Dennis, and if you look at that data, it shows the first 12, the next, and wide receivers for last year really were very much the top dogs. Quarterbacks were right there only in the top 12, and then they dropped and then dropped below running backs.
wow.
So running backs took over for the quarterbacks in the later half, and tight ends were getting a little better, but only after the top 48. So I think I guess what I'm saying is this talking about positional value or expectation? Again, this is 2024. I'll look at 2023, 2, 21, 20. I'll look about 7, 8 years, maybe 10, Dennis, and we'll come back and visit year by year and then across the whole, say, 10 years, just to ask questions. So, expectation, I wouldn't expect tight ends to show up in the top 12. 5% of the time they will. So 95% of the time they're not. You
And
see?
a different way to look at that data is to say, if I hit on my elite tight end, I
Oh,
have an
yes.
advantage. I have a
You see
huge
that
advantage.
that's what I was
Yeah.
bringing up because
Yep.
that's what hit me as well.
Yes.
So is it worth, in other words, is it worth our time to really hone down on the metrics that can predict tight ends? Because I think this is saying if you can find that, that may help you seriously win a league.
And last year in the preseason,
Mm-hmm.
my favorite tight end
Mm-hmm.
versus ADP
Right.
was Trey McBride
Yeah.
with Kittle number
Yeah.
two.
Yeah. And I can look at tight ends if we want here, Dennis, and I will let's see. Hold on, John. So I can look, okay, running back. So that's why I love pivot tables. So get rid of run back. So now I can put players in there. Okay. So McBride, so top 12, Bowers twice. Anybody else? McBride twice.
McBride. Yep.
So only twice. So Bowers, the top 36, 6 weeks. Kittle, 6. Uh, Jonnu Smith, 5.
Yep.
McBride, 6. Kelsey, 4. That's about it. So Jonnu really, boy, he brought home the bacon in the
Yep.
top 36. So I think these metrics tell me that, we had some solid, predictable players, but boy, you really were enhanced if you grabbed Jonnu Smith.
Yeah. Johnny was one of our best value tight end guys. Like
Well,
we drafted him quite a bit in our teams.
yeah.
Um, so that did quite well. And yeah, this is interesting stuff. And then, you know, it just kind of shows you though that if you miss, you miss early on a guy.
Look at Ingram, 1.
Oh, and he was costly. Like he was costing
Goddard,
you.
1.
Yeah.
Komet, 2. Otten was average, about 3. I'm trying to think anybody else. Kyle Pitts, 1.
Oh
Boy,
God. And that was early. He had
yeah,
one good game and then nothing.
nothing. And so Laporta, 3. So average. Hawkinson, 2. Now I'm not looking at, games played. This is just the whole
Right.
across the whole thing. So if we do games played and divide these numbers, and I just started building this, but this is the kind of information we're going to be able to pull out for all the positions. And then we're going to look across years. We're going to look, in other words, in 2023, any tight end, say 6 or above, what did they do this year?
Oh
In other
yeah.
words,
Yeah.
backtracking. In other words, is
Yep.
there something last year that would give us a handle on this year? That kind
Yeah.
of
And
thing.
And I'll guarantee you, look at that data, and Laporta was probably a 5 or 6,
Yeah,
and he
and
dropped off
yet,
to a 3.
well, but we need to understand that variation,
Yeah, yeah,
Dennis. In other
yeah,
words, so if that's what's going to happen and we can measure that, then we're talking, you know, just be very cautious that that variability is in there. So it even makes you want to get a better price. You know,
yeah. And
you can't
yeah.
trust the price as
Well,
much.
and the crazy thing is McBride posted a 7 with exactly 1 touchdown reception all year.
Yes.
That's very unusual for a top tight end.
Yeah.
So if he goes up to 6 or 7 next year, which would
Right.
be a normal regression to the mean,
Right.
he's all of a sudden worth even more.
Well,
That's
the average, I can't get you the mean, but the average is 2.5.
yes, yes.
So 3 is about a little bit on this side of average. So 6, 7. In other words, if we looked at the box and whisker of this, I don't know if this will let me do that. Maybe it will. So box and whisker, nope. So I'll have to copy that. But I'll have that box and whisker for us across years, across seasons, across
Oh,
players. It's
yeah.
coming. I just thought I'd throw this out. I had a little bit of time. I've been up here since about 9 o'clock. So I had a little bit of time, and I thought that'd wet your whistle a little bit going
Oh,
into
I
the
love it.
show.
Yeah, love it.
So
Because
it leaves me with questions, but I
yes,
think you hit the point that I'm thinking is it based on this data, to me, it seems like the effort for hunting that tight end might really be paying off 5 times better than say that running back
or
or the
the quarterback.
or the
Be-
quarterback.
because a quarterback, I can get somebody in the top 36 pretty consistently as a value guy
Yeah, so
without much work. So that's interesting.
yeah, we could. I mean, for instance, so I love this day. We can go back and look at quarterbacks, and we can find out uh, what was going on. Look at Mayfield, 14, Dennis. That's crazy.
And look how cheap you got him.
Yeah.
Look how cheap you could have gotten Bo
The
Nix.
average was 5, Dennis.
Wow.
So look at Jaden Daniels, a 12, Bo Nix, an 11. Wow. Burrow at 11. Daniels a 12. Hurts a 10. You had to pay premium for a 10,
Oh yeah.
but Mayfield would have got you 4 more really nice weeks.
Wow.
So you could calculate, there's probably a metric to look at ADP versus, above mean or something. There's probably some thinking. And again, is this unusual,
Yeah.
Dennis? In other words, last year, 2023, 2022, is this unusual or
Well,
not?
and remember last year I was saying
Lamar
that
Jackson got a
that I
50.
was I was cool with getting this a the seventh quarterback.
Yeah.
And the thing was, I said, take 2 of them, right?
Right.
Back to back. Remember how that
Yeah.
round 7, round 8, quarterback, we ended up with Love and Baker Mayfield, Love and Goff and Mayfield. Those were our most
Jordan
off.
was an 8.
Oh yeah.
So if you had him
Yeah.
and Mayfield together, if you're in a super flex, you had 22.
Yeah. And
Pretty damn good.
that is awesome. And Goff being right there at an 8,
Yeah.
so yeah, you had a situation where if you had 2 of these guys and you picked the right one more often than not, you were better than having Jalen Hurts, and you
Yes.
got them super cheap. Like
Yeah.
that's the crazy thing about it. And I really do like this idea for best ball of taking a mid and two later quarterbacks that are value plays. I mean, Jaden Daniels would have qualified this
Yes.
year
Yes.
uh, as a
I mean, Bo
valued play, and he
Nix
had a
at
12.
11.
Bo
Bo Nix.
Nix was a super discount.
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield was a super discounted guy.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's the interesting part of this is that you have to pay up to get the premium tight end. I think you can get the second grade of quarterback and do incredibly well, especially if you go with the strategy that I'm going to take two of them
Yeah.
and let it beat me. That strategy, there have been so many people that are honing in on that one quarterback strategy. And I'm not so sure that's the right strategy anymore. I think grabbing two, grabbing one guy, and I don't want to say early, but relatively early. We discovered what, fifth round
Hmm.
was about where you wanted to have your
About
first
round six, five,
round,
six.
round 5, 6, and then come back round 6 to 8 for your second guy.
Yeah.
You've already got your elite tight end. You already got two or three at the wide receiver and running back position. And now you're filling out. And, we knew we had value at wide receiver. We know we're going to find value at wide receiver and running back every year. Our
Yeah.
data is better at finding those sleeper guys, those undervalued guys.
Yeah.
At quarterback, what this data is showing me is that our strategy last year of waiting a little bit, but getting in by the fifth or sixth round was probably a good strategy.
Well, my best ball, I did 10 late quarterbacks, and five of the 10, I was third or better. I won
Wow.
one, but I had
Yeah.
3 seconds and 1/3. So I
And I
really was close to. I mean, I made money. If I just played that, I would have made money.
and here's the only problem with taking that data and going to the future. Just like you said, you've got to be
Well,
cautious
I've
on
got to
that.
go back and look, Dennis, and ask questions and try to think about it. Yes.
Because we knew going in this year that there were about four targets that we liked at quarterback
Yes.
that were going to be relatively inexpensive. We had one or two tight ends that
Yeah.
we really valued early.
Right.
And then the rest of the guys, like we were like, you're either paying up, you're overpaying for tight end, or here are the one or two values, and then here are the bargain guys.
You're streaming at that point.
Correct. But if you're streaming, you might even be streaming your own draft picks because
Yes.
if you had grabbed, let's say the only two tight ends that you grabbed in a redraft last year were Jonnu Smith and Ertz, and you got them both late.
Yeah.
That didn't hurt you none.
Yeah.
Because even the weeks that, you know, if Jono missed a week, Ertz wasn't bad,
Yeah.
and that's the question is, will we be able to spot those guys? And maybe that's the strategy, Professor, is the guys that once we have an established ADP and we could say, here are the targets. We know we've got some bargains at wide receiver, and here's where we're going to draft them. It's almost like reverse building the draft. You know where you're going to have to spend to get those value guys at wide receiver and running back. Early on, you're taking the best value. You don't care where they play. And then the rest is patching in where I'm going to take my tight end and my quarterbacks.
And the
But
treat of having the ADP versus all our metrics lined up in our grid and had that secret data we had for our draft night out team, that
yeah,
was really felt good that it felt like it was real and it was it felt like we were several steps ahead of Benny. And not everybody, but it was a nice feeling that we were with the wave and not getting crashed by it.
no, we were going on a strength of understanding when to make the moves we did.
I think so.
And that was the big key there. So yeah, I am very excited to run that back and do that. Was fun, first of all.
Yeah.
We'll do that one again.
Yeah.
We'll pay up for a team there to do that. That was fun.
Yeah.
It was great seeing the reaction of everybody
Yeah.
to our picks, and we nailed that draft.
Yeah.
We had a few injury issues that cost us, but um, and then one decision at defense that cost us a chance at the title.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have won the title. Like our running backs, they didn't. That was where we got beat at the end a little bit, but again, I think where you finish during the regular season is a big deal. And that's our FPPC mentality.
Yeah.
Is we've got to be good consistently week in, week out on points.
Yes.
We don't care about the matchups. We care
No.
about the points. And we have built the great thing about the strategies that we built, they are built to be successful on FPPC.
Yeah.
But we proved we could take those same theories and apply them elsewhere.
Yes. I like that.
And in Fishbowl, the only super flex draft that I paid up at quarterback and I got my ass handed to me. It's really weird how I went against what my strategy should have been. And I
You should have picked up the Loves and
should have picked
the Mayfields and
should have picked Lamb in that first round, and
yes.
that would have changed my whole trajectory.
Yep.
But seeing Mahomes sitting there, it was just too juicy for me. I should have let him. I should have passed on him. Oh yeah, he was very average, and that's a case where I should have forecasted the drop, and that's where the forecasting is still going to play in. But I'm not going to overvalue the guys that I expect to increase. But I am going to avoid the guys that I see a decrease out of.
Yeah.
And that'll be the strategy going forward. But I can already see that next season, I think guys, there's going to be some natural values that play out at the position. And I don't think people are going to run Daniels back as a top 5 guy. And the crazy thing is, we overpaid for Hurts. If you wanted him last year, you had to overpay for him.
Yep.
He may dip down to where he's a value.
It's all about value.
I think Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and Joe Burrow are going to be overdrafted next year.
Yeah.
So I'm going to probably avoid those 3 guys. And I'll be happy with a Goff Love, a Goff Prescott, a Goff Mayfield again, a Daniels Goff. Those combinations I think I'll be perfectly happy with again.
Yeah. Purdy was a 9, not too bad.
No.
Purdy was
and he will probably be very cheap
Yeah.
ADP
I
wise
think
again.
he kind of played out. In other words, he wasn't consistent. I think he hit earlier than later. And again, I need to look at weeks. I can come in the data, Dennis, and do this same split, but first half, second half, and we can look at the difference in the halves and ask questions if I
And,
wanted to.
and also, here's the way I'm looking at the data is on my consensus data for the last 2 years.
Oh,
He's QB8. He did most of that this year without Ayuk and CMC.
yep.
If he gets the full complement of weapons back for next year,
Well, he'll be cheap.
he will be a value guy. I mean,
He'll be
he'll
somebody as your QB2 that could be a QB1 for you most weeks.
so he'll be the Baker Mayfield of
Yes.
this year.
So you
And
can draft somebody.
yeah,
Maybe he's part of your 8, 9, or 9, 10 strategy in the draft.
yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see how people treat Bo Nix because he
Yes.
ranked out as my number 11
Yeah.
quarterback in in a system that I know undervalues rookies.
Right.
So I look at that and
Well,
say he's
again, it's
got
all about
upward.
the ADP. We
Yeah,
don't know what
we
they're
don't
going to
know.
give us, right?
We
We've
don't
got to
know
play
yeah,
what the table gives us.
yeah, you don't know where
The
the
odds
value's going to be.
boards help us or not.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And in best ball, I might invest in guys that are, like some of the guys that are ignored. That's your third quarterback again. It's the Bryce Youngs, the Caleb Williamses of the world. Um, they can have these little spurty weeks.
Yeah.
So it's just I'm really interested to see where the ADPs rest and where I'm interested to see where the rankings start at
Yeah.
some of these sites because I'm a big believer that the initial rankings before there's been a lot of drafts,
Yeah.
I think if you looked at the initial rankings by site,
Mhm.
I think it ends up skewing where the ADP goes.
Well, there's something called anchor bias.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's why, the stores will manipulate you, right? 9.99. It's better than 10, right? It anchors you. What's $9? Well, no, it's
Yes.
really
Yes.
almost 10, but you're anchored at 9. That seems like a bargain, versus 10.01. Man, that seems expensive, and that kind of thing. So sometimes, the front of the store, the jewelry store is all the expensive jewelry. And you're like, man. And then when you get to say the $1,000 ring, that doesn't seem so expensive, does it? If you're looking at 10, 12,000 and then 1,000, wow, that seems cheap. That's just, Dennis, they're playing you games.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so I,
Well,
I, I, I like to think about sometime. I don't know, my wife hates to take me shopping some, but I'll look at how they set the shelving up, and
yep.
and there are people that make a living just the colors, what shelf they need to be under, where they need to do. Have you ever noticed they'll put all these things almost in your way to slow you down? You can't speed shop because the data says the longer in the store, the more you buy. So if
They
they
put
can put narrow, aisles with big baskets, it's hard to maneuver. That slows you down. And a big basket, well, seem like I need to fill that up before I leave. You almost feel like, grandma's plate there. She give you a big old plate. You feel like you got to eat everything.
it's funny you
Clean
say
your
that.
plate. Clean your
It's
plate.
it's funny you say that because I was at the store yesterday
Yeah.
and they had these end of row displays
Well, yeah.
that prevented two carts from passing side by side,
Slowing you down.
slowing your ass down.
Yeah,
Funny
and that's
stuff.
why the milk is always at the back
Yep.
because some people, man, I just need that quick gallon of milk, and some bread. They won't put it, you have to go through. Well, that's a chocolate bar. Maybe I'm hungry, or here's some chips. So all of a sudden your milk becomes, a $40 these days, $60, you know, trip for your gallon of milk. You
Yeah,
know,
they're manipulating
that's
us,
right.
Professor.
They are. They are. I guess we should start the show, Dennis.
All right, here we go. Love that data though.
Yeah.
And the way to organize stuff. I love that strategy, and I'm going to be employing a lot of that going forward. All right, here we go. How you doing, everybody? This is Dennis Michelson. Welcome to the science of fantasy football. Why the science of fantasy football? You get a meteorologist and a biologist together. They're going to use the scientific method to sort through the statistics, and that is guaranteed to make you a smarter fantasy football player. How could I give you that guarantee? Because it just means the scientific method. We're going to use the statistics to find the answers instead of having an answer and then having to cherry pick the stats to back up our point. Joining me as he does each and every week, twice a week usually, it is the fantasy professor. He's a real professor emeritus. It's John Bush. John, welcome back.
Thank you, Dennis. I guess we've got the divisional playoffs. I've got some DAPs and some things to look at and consider. We'll see what Vegas thinks, so we'll go through that. Got two games today. It's Saturday morning, 10:14 here, Central Standard Time, and it's supposed to be cold out there, Dennis. So I hear there might be some snow for the Eagles game. Is that true? We got a lot to talk
Yes.
about, so that could affect any kind of props I'm thinking about. I don't know if I'm gonna bet any props, but in case I did, I don't like that wind snow concept to try to score touchdowns and whatnot. But we had a nice pre-show that will be on the video only, so you should check that out. Starting to look at some data that we're speculating things that we might be pulling in our drafts in 2025. We'll be doing a lot of that, Dennis. We have a lot to do, young man, a lot to do.
Yeah, and organizing the data is a big part of the task when you get done with a season. And you know, I learned a lot though this year again. This concept of using a consensus of different variables is something that I really think worked better than either of us might have expected it to. And I was so happy with our drafts that I continued that same logic during the season and came up with a consensus weekly value for players that changed every week. And the year end data, when I compared that to ADP, boy, there were some
This is
big
the article that's
surprises.
sitting
Yes,
because we
yes,
can we
that's
can talk about that if you want. Do you want to
yeah.
go to that now? Let
Let's
you
talk about that.
because I had a few questions and thinking about that. Let me find. Let me see. Do we have that here? Here we go. Yeah. No, that's our podcast from Wednesday, which by the way, we just kind of off the cuff were kind of jumping around a little bit, but that's good. It was good. I enjoyed let me find that article here, Dennis. Let's see. It was after the season. So you called it consistent consensus
Consensus weekly value
weekly.
metric.
Yeah, let me see if I can. I don't know. My computer's wacky here, Dennis. I don't know. It doesn't like me. It's angry at me. I don't know. There's some prep race down at the fairgrounds today, LeComp, is running. A
Ooh.
horse named Built is going to be the favorite down there. So you might want to turn on there and watch. And your jockey guy, Fraven Pratt, won 4 out of 5 mounts yesterday
Ooh.
at Santa Anita. So that jockey was hot, 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 hot. So
And
okay,
he never gets over bet like Irado Ortiz. It's
no,
crazy. They let Flavian Prat get off at good odds, and
yeah,
you
well, I
know
bet you
during
made
the
money if you bet all his
oh, I
plays from
bet you
last
did.
year. Yeah.
I
So
bet you did.
here, so Dennis, I'm sharing with you. Folks should be able to see this consensus weekly value metric. Why don't you give us the methodology introduction and we'll look at the data.
So there were 4 pieces of data that went into this. 2 of them were weighted with 2024 data, and then 2 of the metrics were 100% 2024 data. So every week I added those 4 together and came up with a consensus, but also came up with the tiers between different players. So, for instance, at the quarterback position,
Here
at
we
the very
go.
end of the season, I don't think there's any question in anybody's mind. The 3 best fantasy quarterbacks this year were Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, and Josh Allen. There
That's your
was no
tier. That's your
that
top tier.
that's the top tier, and I
What are
they
the
were
plus and minus numbers?
so those are versus their ADP. And I
Oh,
use the instead of using,
okay.
sometimes we use the FPPC ADP. For this, I use the consensus ADP
Hmm.
that looks at all of the major sites and
Right.
combines them. And at the beginning of the year, Lamar Jackson was your quarterback 4. And Burrow, remember, had that little, is his risk going to be okay? Is it not? So he fell all the way to quarterback 7. Josh Allen was your quarterback 1, and he didn't live up to that that ranking. Okay, but he was still in that upper tier, so he didn't hurt you
So
if
a
you
big
drafted
number
him.
like Burrows or Jaden Daniels should catch your eye.
A big
Golf,
plus, a
yeah, a
big
big
plus
plus.
is what you are looking at. A big minus is
Is
what
like
set
Patrick
you back.
Mahomes. Sorry,
Yeah,
it's
minus
his
5
damn
for
fault. Yeah,
Mahomes.
look at
Oof.
Mayfield plus 13,
Oh,
Bo
huge value.
Nix
Yeah.
plus 14. Goodness,
Look at Sam Darnold.
plus 20.
He was QB 31 for a team that has Justin Jefferson on it. I mean, how crazy that sounds now.
Now,
And of course, he probably will not be the starting quarterback week 1 for the Vikings next season. It'll probably be JJ McCarthy. So understanding where Darnold ended, QB 11, we can kind of say, okay, if I can get McCarthy lower than QB 11, I probably want to take a shot at him.
certainly want to
And
consider him,
oh, yeah,
depending on what else is
absolutely.
out there.
Absolutely. So, anyway, this gives you an
I mean,
idea.
if McCarthy is close to Baker Mayfield, though,
Oh, yeah, then you
yeah,
don't.
I mean, so you
Yeah,
got to see who else is around. I bet McCarthy will be in the 20s.
he could be. He could be. And that's the thing is this time of the
So
year,
then that gets me very interested if he's in the
yes.
20 as my solid QB2 type.
Yeah. And we looked at other data a couple of weeks ago that you showed of just passing yards
Yes.
for each offense. They had no fall off from Kirk Cousins and the replacements to Sam Darnold
No.
this year. Their offense was almost identical. So JJ McCarthy next year, QB 11, that might not be a bad place to target him. And so the way I look at this is you can instantly grade where your successes and failures were.
Mhm.
We were big on Goff this year. We love the fact that he only had 3 outside games all season. We were big on Baker Mayfield. We couldn't understand why he was being ignored.
Yeah.
We
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 we we liked later if we were going to draft like Jordan Love and Mayfield I think that what we were doing, trying to do like 8 and 9, like back to back, so we knew
Yes.
we most likely could stream and really collect, and I think that worked out for us.
Yeah, and in Superflex, I was grabbing three quarterbacks, but I wasn't grabbing necessarily an elite quarterback this year. So I ended up with a lot of Goff, um, Prescott, um, Caleb Williams, Anthony Richardson as my extra guys, Jordan Love, Baker Mayfield. I had three of those guys. So I didn't have any elite guys.
Mhm.
But if you look at where I finished, I was pretty happy with the results, and it showed up with the winnings. Justin Herbert was another guy that I liked, um, last year because he was coming in cheap enough. He ended up only being +1 using this data, um, but had a hot end of the season. And one of the things I love to do in fantasy football, and this particular look here is looking at the whole season. But
Right.
what I like to do is break the season down in quarters. Did I have a guy who did well for a 4 to 6 game stretch?
Right.
And that's the way I like to grade it. So we get down to the running backs. You could see that,
And one thing, CJ Stroud
oh,
really
yeah.
hurt you this year.
Yeah. And here's the thing is, remember
He was a
last
six.
last year, CJ Stroud, his MVP was only a 73.
Yep.
Okay. So looking at my data, I said, man, he's they are liking this guy way too high. So, he ended up finishing
I
outside of the
didn't,
top
my
25.
41, Dennis, I didn't draft him.
I had zero CJ Stroud
Yeah.
in best ball and redraft this
In other
year.
words, at that ADP, I suspect I was fishing elsewhere for other
Oh,
things
yeah.
and was
Yeah.
probably waiting for Purdy, Mayfield, Love, that kind of thing, and Dak. And just to let you know, two of my six winners, I had Dak. I flipped to Bo Nix. I picked
Oh,
him up and dollar
yep.
for a holler, kind of
Yep.
didn't cost me much. And I believe it or not, I made that work and collected some, 700 bucks. Woo woo.
In
So
our
that,
on our draft night out team,
yeah.
we drafted Jordan Love.
Uh-huh.
We went and grabbed, I think we had the kid from Carolina as our backup, but week one,
Yeah.
we flipped him to Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
Got
Boy.
Baker Mayfield off of waivers.
Yeah.
I mean, how crazy is that? And then we had Love and Mayfield to pick from each week.
Yeah. That's a
And that,
good streaming option
yeah,
right there.
yeah. So it just shows you that at quarterback, I love this strategy of taking two,
Mhm.
and I love the strategy of taking two that are value guys. And this time of the year, we have no idea how to value the quarterback position for next season because we have no idea where the rankings will be. Although I'll probably say this, I'll say this for the record right now. I doubt I will have Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and Joe Burrow on many teams because I'm not willing to pay the premium
Yeah.
for those three because I
Well,
think they
I
will
mean,
be
if you look
overdrafted.
at the metrics, look at my metrics that will be coming. It's like, now why am I paying this when I could get that cheaper? Right?
Yes.
It's the value thing.
Yes. Yeah, because I think guys like Jaden Daniels
Right.
will maybe offer as much value. And the big point is what I'm sacrificing at quarterback, I'm not going to be sacrificing as much, even if I have a Goff or a Love or a Prescott or a Nix or, maybe even a JJ McCarthy
Yeah.
next year, because I know where those players are going to be.
Yeah.
And if I grab two of them,
Oh,
I can play the better of the option on any given week. And the key is, no, I don't expect that combination to do as well as the top tier of Jackson, Allen, and Burrow.
Right.
Now, if Burrow comes in and he's not being drafted until QB8 again, then all of a
Yeah.
sudden I'm all over him.
Yeah.
But the point is, where you have to spend that draft capital to get, I believe, who are the top three guys this year, I
Yeah.
think they're all going to go really early next year,
Yeah.
especially Allen and Jackson. I'm not willing to pay up for that premium because I know I can get something almost as good four rounds later.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, I load up at running back and wide receiver.
Right. What about
So
running backs?
yeah, running backs, there weren't as many huge disappointments. Okay.
There, I
If you,
noticed that. If you look at
yeah,
the top tier, there were a
look,
lot of
look at,
pluses here.
look at the minuses. Yeah. Saquon Barkley was a -1. Do you really care because he was in the top tier?
No, no, you don't.
So you're happy with that. But very few disappointments at
Look
the
at
running
Chase
back
Brown
position.
plus 27. Dennis, that was a hell of a call. And that I know that made you money. Made us money
Yes,
in Dynasty,
correct.
allowed us to finish second, and that was a good deal.
Chase Brown was a guy that I knew was going to have the opportunity. That
Right.
was a Zach Moss play. It was all off of MVP. My MVP said Zach Moss had not hit the magic number,
Yeah.
and that means he's going to be vulnerable to losing his position. And as a result, was all over Chase Brown, was all over Bucky Irving. Both of them paid off big time. Now,
Chuba,
Irving,
too, plus
Chuba,
24.
Chuba was another guy where I was like, okay, I'm going to draft the rookie,
Yeah. Look
but
at ETN
I'm going
minus
to
20.
grab
So I
Chuba.
love this data, folks. So I wouldn't get hung up on it, but what I do is I look at the numbers as I go through the tiers and just kind of my notes would be, well, why did that happen? So why was
Yes.
Swift a -4 versus Dobbins a +14 in the same tier? What the hell happened to make those diverge so much, yet they ended in the same tier? So that's how I would people should use this. Get your notepad, get your diary, look at where you drafted, and maybe just add the plus or minus for you. Berkey was plus 36. How did you do? Use Dennis's plus or minus and grade your teams out and see. I need to do that. We need to have an intern, Dennis, so all our teams are, we could pull that up instead of me having to do it, having somebody else do it for us. We got stuff to do. We ain't got time for this.
There you go. And
Yeah.
also as you go down
Yeah.
to wide receiver,
Yeah.
again, very few disappointments in the early wide receiver group. Again, CeeDee Lamb at -3. Do you really care because he was
No.
in that top six?
Yeah.
Um, you know,
The
there was a
Brown
lot of
brothers,
value
you
there.
got zero, but
Yeah.
you paid what you got for them there.
And the crazy thing is looking at some of these people who put out early, way too early 2025 rankings.
Yeah.
I've seen Amon-Ra St. Brown as low as WR7 to WR11.
Wow.
I got him at
That,
WR3. Actually,
yeah.
if you look at just the data from the last two seasons,
Mhm.
which I've done, and I'll have an article coming out this week, he's WR1 in using my numbers. And I was shocked to see him there. But look how cheap you got Malik Neighbors. Look how cheap you got Brian Thomas. If you ever look at a past performance for a veteran wide receiver and you see them 28th to 40th, and you say, you know what? Better quarterback next year. He's going to be way up there. Maybe that's not a good bet because these two guys had two of the worst quarterback situations in pro football, and they were rookies.
Maybe some people should use this for dynasty and
Oh
kind of
yeah.
grade out. And
Yes.
then, folks, I would look at the age, especially for running backs.
Yes.
And if the running backs are not play catchers out of the backfield, I'd be a little bit more skeptical. If it's an older one, I like to see a little bit of pass activity to kind of make up for that. That's the data kind of wants to say that. I mean, there are exceptions, but that's a little bit more the rule for older ones there. Love to see that capability. So it just maybe great out there. Their dynasty dentists using these metrics. That would be interesting. In other
Yeah.
words, if all their top wide receivers are minuses or zeros, maybe that tells you something. Maybe you're a little too old, or that kind of thing. It would just allow you to have questions, Dennis, and then go do the deeper research. But right now, if you don't have this, then you may not miss, like, how's my running backs look? Use Dennis's point system. Maybe take an average of your top three and your wide receivers top three, and then compare them. Is there an issue? Like, I'm okay over here, but I got some questions here. Maybe this would be a good guide, Dennis, if somebody did maybe we should do our dynasty team and go through that at one if we have time. I know we got plenty of stuff to do.
Yeah, I
But I
think
was
that's
just
actually
thinking,
that's a great idea. Let's do that next week
you know what I'm
because
saying?
next
Let you go through
yeah,
there, put your
next week.
numbers, and
Yep.
just let us start knocking about. Well, is this telling us something here?
Yeah, because one of the things that I'm looking at with our dynasty team
Yeah.
is we've got Cooper Cup.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And if you look where Cooper Cup came in using my numbers,
Mm.
he's all the way down at 17th
Yeah.
and
He's
he's
way down there.
falling. So I'm looking at him as being a guy that, is probably going to be, declining. But then we've got T. Higgins and Devonta Smith on that team,
Godwin.
and we got CD Lamb. So we're
Yeah.
looking at a lot of good wide receivers on our dynasty team that
Yeah.
are going to be around for several years. We also have Jalen Waddle. I expect better things from Waddle next year. So
Yeah.
I'm not too worried about our wide receivers, but I think it is a good idea to look through this and to see where we are, to see where our weaknesses might be and our strengths might be, because I think we could pick up quite a bit on this going forward.
I like it. So I would suggest people do that. Let's hit tight ends, and then we'll maybe start thinking about the games here.
Yeah,
Tight end, Kittle, Bowers, and I think Trey McBride. Now, what was interesting to me, your metric says zero. My Bush figure, he's going to be one of the better ones, him and Bowers. Kittle's going to be in there. Kelsey's not going to be as strong. In other words, if I tiered mine out, it would be closer to Bowers. McBride might be the top tier, and then maybe the next tier. In other words, I might break this top tier Dennis into two, that kind of thing. And with my metrics,
yeah, and when I remove the 2023 or 2022 season from the
mm-hmm.
data and just look back at the last two seasons,
Right, that's going
Trey
to
Mc,
make some difference. Yeah,
Trey McBride comes up to number one.
yeah, I could see
So
that.
so as my end of season that factored in his previously not so great year of 2023 slightly, he was he was tight end 4 is what he was drafted. He ended up as tight end 4, but here's the kick: there were only 3 that were supposed to be in the top tier
Yeah,
this year, and neither of them were named Kittle or Bowers. So it was supposed to, a lot of people were putting Dalton McBride Dalton Kincaid or
Laporta.
Laporta in that top group. Laporta grades out using my data for just these 2 years as the tight end 8 for next season,
Yeah.
and Kincaid's at tight end 18. So both of those guys failed to live up to what people expected of them last year. The guy that really amazes me is, again, the system that I use, the way I do the data. It puts a slight handicap on the rookies from a given year.
Yeah.
Okay. Brock Bowers being tight end 2
Yeah.
with that situation, it's clear that he is the top tight end in Dynasty right now. Both, gets the age break. Now, Trey McBride isn't too far behind at tight end 2. But those are the only 2 of the younger crowd
Yeah.
that you would really be putting ahead of the old timers based on age. Then it's maybe Kittle, maybe even Kelsey hangs on, maybe Andrews nudges up into there. Njoku, who had a solid year playing injured most of the year with lousy quarterback play. Again, here's a situation where quarterback play did not hamper a player's performance. So don't forecast a big improvement based on quarterback play for other guys at this position. A slight increase, sure. But if you can have a guy that ranks out this strong, I mean, the second tier of tight ends and tight end 5 or 6 in this data, then that's saying something. But there were some interesting players that the consensus was way under on Jonnu Smith this year.
Yep.
And we were high on the guy.
Yep. I picked him up and used him a lot. But cheap off the waivers.
Oh, he was cheap off the waivers. And even when we drafted him, we were getting him,
our third or second.
Second tight end, 25th or 30th tight end off the block. Did we expect a second tier finish?
No, I didn't.
But we've expected better than consensus. So we were expecting maybe, a 10th or 12th finish. And we got much higher. So
I drafted people like him with Hawkinson or, Ertz with Hawkinson. In other words, I had planned to stream. So he was one of my streamers. Ertz, I know Dennis gets tired of me barking at him, but every year I really have made good living streaming with Ertz as part of the mix. Not necessarily my number 1 pick, but man, if he's up there late, I can't leave him there. And Taysom Hill could have been part of a streaming thing if you're. I don't think FFPC counts him as a tight end. I think he's a quarterback.
He's only a quarterback.
So that's why I don't get to draft him much. But in leagues that allow him, he would be in my conversation as well. And I see Tucker Kraft did a pretty good deal here. Grosecki had spiked, but then you're talking streaming in these tiers. So
correct.
Again, for Dynasty, if you're in a tight end premium or not for your Dynasty, at this point you're talking, do you have enough to stream kind of thing? And so that's kind of a separate question than, in Dynasty, who's going to be the number 1 for the next 2-3 years. There's multiple questions with tight ends.
Yeah, and I mean, we were able to pick up Ertz off of waivers.
Yes.
For our Dynasty team.
Yes.
So we're keeping him.
Oh,
you know, and Hawkinson and that's that's insurance. That's an insurance policy at the tight end position because Ertz ain't going anywhere next year. He'll once again slide under everybody's radar and be just fine.
Yeah. He'll
So,
be a good streamer.
yeah, but a very interesting look at the data. And like I said,
liked it.
I will be breaking down the data for the last 2 seasons alone, which can be thought of as my way too early rankings for 2025. But as we've stressed a million times, it's all about your value. So until I see a ranking at FPPC, till I see the ADP start adjusting, we'll have no clue who the best values are at any position. Well, Professor, we're heading to the big round of the playoffs because this is the semifinals. Is the way, this is the semifinals.
I have a little bit
conference.
of a comment about our Kansas City quarterback from the Wall Street Journal. You and I sent it to you.
Yes.
And long story short, it was almost like who was writing this was mad that Mahomes had taken up all the air for the younger quarterbacks. It was Mahomes' fault because he'd been winning too many Super Bowls that some of these other younger guys, weren't able to step up. It's kind of like in The Dance, card, there's James Bond taking all the women and you're sitting over there, on the sideline, can't get in, man, can't play, can't, do your stuff. Because it's just the dude's sucking up all the air here. And if you want to read a funny article, I know it was meant, I couldn't tell if it was trying to be serious or not. But, I thought that was an interesting take that it's Mahomes' fault that these young quarterbacks don't have a shot. Can you imagine? Ask Vince Lombardi. Yeah, Bart Starr's fault. And you as the best coach, it's your fault these younger coaches can't get up in here and take your place. It's your damn fault. You're too damn good. Can you imagine hearing that and just his face when you would say something like that to anybody? Gretzky or Michael Jordan saying, you're sucking up all the air, man. Give these guys a break. They just laugh at you.
As a Chiefs fan, okay, I look at the fact that I believe before Mahomes, I believe the data was that we were in 3 AFC championship games. If he wins today, every year that he has been a starting quarterback in the NFL, he will have played in the AFC Championship. That just blows me away to think this is how dominant this guy has been, not for just 3 or 4 years, but every year that he has started, you have had to beat Mahomes to win a championship. Mm-hmm. That's phenomenal dominance. And no, it's not all just because of Patrick Mahomes. They have developed a hell of a team. But if you look at that very first Super Bowl win that he had, or you just even look at the first time he was in the AFC Championship when he got, taken out by Brady. Mm-hmm. And you just look at it, you go, that guy, he was winning games when they didn't have a defense.
Right.
And then, I'll tell you, Spags got that below average defense playing really good at the right time. Mm-hmm. But the second Super Bowl he won, he was like 12th, 13th defense, best defense in the league. But again, they peaked at the right time. Last year, that defense was top 3 any way you want to measure it. That was the best defense the Chiefs have had in the Mahomes era, and he didn't have to do quite as much until the playoffs. This year, again, by any metric, they're top three defense. And what makes that more remarkable is the guys that they lost last year and in the last 2 years. Yet Spags has just continued to scheme to where they're just unbeatable. And, that's when you have a streak like they do in one score games where they've won 15 straight. Think about that. It was Christmas Day last year, the last time they lost a one score game.
Yeah. Well,
That's
the Vegas says 30-10, and I haven't checked the latest, Dennis, but it was a couple days ago. It was 41 minus 10 spread. So they think Kansas City has no problems. Does that make you worried as a Kansas City fan?
gets me very nervous.
Nervous, right? Well,
Gets me very nervous.
KC
Yeah.
doesn't really have any DAP impediments, defense against position here. It's looks like Kelsey has an opportunity. He hadn't done as good as he could have this year. I was sad for that. Houston, uh, Mixon is off the injury report or is going to play, but boy, KC has worked really well this year at rushing and against kickers for whatever reason. Actually, I do know, Dennis, and it's been a while, that when I looked at the PCA analysis, kickers and running backs fell together in the same.
Interesting.
Yeah, so uh, we need to, you and I, and that's some of our secret stuff. I probably should have said that, but anyway, that's some of my Vegas stuff. But when I looked at that, and so just down the road for kickers, we probably should consider that a little bit. I'm not going to, reach and draft any, but just at the last round if we have to draft kickers, maybe I'll look to see who's got the better season for their running backs, and maybe that'll be, a one metrics, but there tends to be a tie-in there, Dennis. I thought that was interesting. Anyway, Houston's going to have to pass all day, all night. And Casey's been a little slack on that.
Yep.
But Vegas doesn't buy it. So that's what's got me intrigued. Houston, not very efficient. 35, that's below average. KC, this is offense only. KC is 55, that's above average. Uh, KC loves to be away, Dennis, and they're
Yes, they
not.
have. Yep.
Yeah. And so at home, they pass more than rush, and this data says they can do either. They're going to be the most dynamic. Houston away tries to rush 15% more and pass 5% less, exactly opposite what the DAPs are going to give them from the defense. So I think they're going to try Mixon, but it looks like it's a tough day for Mixon. And Houston, till last week, I was very surprised that they woke back up because their efficiency at the end of the season was sad and they were declining. But maybe, they fix that. But Kansas City is not where you go to get healthy. And that's what I'll say. So I'm not surprised at any of this. As far as betting, 10 points is pretty bold, given there's a little bit of slack in the passing. And, Stroud could hit Nico or get lucky on some of the passing. It might be closer than Vegas thinks, but I'm not sure I'd bet on any of this at this point. In other words, I don't think KC needs 30 to beat Houston either. So
No.
I'm not sure that 41 is something I would be betting. I think I'd take the money line with KC and try to parlay it with somebody else.
Yeah, and I think that's the right way to go, except the money line is minus
Well, that's why you
556.
got to parlay every damn.
You got to
You'd have to
parlay.
parlay the next three games
Yep.
to make anything. But
Yeah.
Dennis, for $2, come on. If I can
Yeah, and
get 5-1 on a 14 parlay, I may do that.
I may take the under as the way to play this game.
Now,
Um,
is the weather an issue? I know it's going to be cold.
Weather's not going to be really an issue. I mean, we're talking north wind 10 mile an hour, so straight down the field. It's not going to be much of a crosswind. These two quarterbacks, it's not going to affect them one bit. The thing that'll affect the game is the pass rush. You know, Houston won the line of scrimmage last week, and that's why they're still playing. Kansas City has not had a meaningful football game in 24 days.
Wow.
That's scary. So, did it come in a little rusty early? Yeah. I'm thinking 2010 Kansas City in this game. So, the under is the way I would play this. And I'd probably avoid a lot of the player props. This is one of those games where it's a Noah Gray touchdown or it's a, Samaje Perine touchdown type of thing. It could be some unusual player getting into the end zone for one of the two Kansas City touchdowns. So I would be a little scared of that one. The nightcap today.
Yep. Detroit, Washington. Vegas says basically 10 points, 9.5. Detroit, no problem over Washington, but 55. So Vegas says
That's a
it's a
big number.
shootout. But yet the spread is 10. And I probably got the secret data. I could look at these kind of scenarios. What is that? What's the tendency to which one's the weak link, the spread or the over under there? That's interesting. Detroit should be able to run if they get are they getting Knuckles or Sonic back? Is Montgomery
I
going to
don't
play?
think Montgomery's playing.
Oh, okay. I thought he was looking to play.
Yeah, I'm not perfectly sure on that one, but I
Yeah.
wouldn't expect a full game from him. Let me put it to you that.
I like Gibbs. He looks like he has an opportunity here. Looks like Amon St. Brown is probably the only one I would consider here. And so yet Vegas says 37. The Daps would say Gibbs is going to give them a lot of those like 2 touchdowns. Laporta, where you been all season? You got an opportunity here. There may be a Detroit pick six in here, Dennis. Maybe that may be your parlay business there. Washington should have no problem hitting Scary Terry, collect all day long, and yet only 18. That looks funny. In other words, they're saying Detroit crushes Washington, yet there's 55, and yet the DAPs seem to imply Washington keeps up by passing. So that's a little tricky, Dennis, and Ertz could surprise us here. If you want to gamble, take Ertz touchdown here with some of these another like Jaden Daniels running it in. There's your prop right there. Something like it, something funky or Scary Terry, 2 touchdowns with an Ertz or something. Really stretch what Vegas is saying here. Detroit loves away, and they're at home. And away home games, it's all about the passing, and that's kind of opposite of what Washington's given them. So they're going against the Daps here. Gibbs, I think, is going to lead them to the victory. If Gibbs has a bad day, it could be a little closer than people think. Washington loves to be at home. They're away, and away they don't like to pass or rush. They're minus 9% rushing and 16% passing. So they're going to have to break that tendency and pass, pass, pass. And they were improving in the end of the season. So I'm getting different signals here, from Vegas to the efficiency to the DAPS. It confuses me more than anything here. I think Detroit should win, and that may be my money line parlay with the Chiefs, but it wouldn't surprise me Washington's closer than Vegas thinks.
Yeah, and it wouldn't surprise me if this is a close game. I am also thinking that it's going to be under that 55 and a half. That's a big number
That is
for
a
a
big
playoff
number.
game. And Monty is going to play
Ah,
full go. No, not even on the injury
there
list.
you go,
So,
Dennis. I knew it.
yep, you hit that one. And
So that I think that is if Sonic and Knuckles should give the run to, and I think Washington's going to have to pass to keep up with Sonic and Knuckles.
it'll all be a matter of can that Detroit pass rush
Yep.
get to Daniels? Otherwise, this
Daniels
will
is
be a
pretty
shootout.
spry, Dennis. He got
Oh,
some pep in his step, and
all,
he can start jumping around, and people like, where's this guy going?
also very smart in the way he does that because
Yes, he does.
he's still looking to throw until the last minute. But boy, is he fast. And, that could be the difference maker. I probably would not put a bet on this game either way, except to take the under in this
Uh-huh.
one and maybe a
Okay.
Daniels touchdown.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe
He
Daniels is
runs
going to
in.
find
That's what
his
I
way to
was
the end
thinking.
zone.
Get a Daniels with an Ertz. Really stretch your $2 bet there for
There
your
you go.
parlay. Or
There you
maybe
go.
a Sonic or Knuckles with an Ertz or something. Something like that.
Very possible
Yeah.
indeed. All right,
Sunday,
Sunday's
Philly,
action.
Rams, and
Oh,
it's
oh,
snow.
by
Yeah.
by the way,
Yeah.
I'll give you a lock for that Lions game.
Oh, okay.
No weather impact at all.
Hold it now. They
No
don't have a
weather impact.
retractable roof, so nice. The
There you go.
heating, Dennis, the heating breaks down. Then what?
Oh my goodness. There could be calamity.
Yeah. Okay.
All
So
right.
Philly,
Ram.
Rams, we got snow. Do we have snow and
Yes.
wind?
Yes. We don't have so much wind. Okay. This is not a very deep low pressure system that is going to be developing right off the coast.
Uh-huh.
It's going to be a mushy, wet snow.
Mhm.
So that might cut into the accumulation. I could see as little as an inch. And when I give during the game, I mean from the time they have to remove the tarp
Yeah.
to get ready for the start of the game
Right.
through the end of the game, they could have as little as 1 inch, as much as 4 inches
Mm.
of snow during that time frame. This is
Wow.
about the worst time relative to when the snow is going to hit to have a football game in Philadelphia. If this was later in the day, if this was an evening game,
Uh-huh.
the snow might be tapering down by then.
Mm-mm.
They're definitely getting snow. I just don't know who it benefits.
Yeah.
That's my big
Well,
question.
Vegas says 28-16 -6, so a touchdown. 44. So it looks like they think Philly's the lock here. Philly is going to have to pass all day long. Devonta Smith, Brown, looks like Goddard's or whoever's going to have to earn their biscuits, and Saquon will do what he does, but I'm not sure he has a 2 touchdown game. This is a tough Ram rushing defense here, Dennis. It looks like passing's the way to go. And the Rams, it looks like play nobody. So Puka's going to have to earn his biscuits, Dennis. This looks rough and tough with snow. This could this could be 28-3. This could be 28-27. I mean, I just don't know. It's almost like you have to guess what Stafford is going to do, but this is a stout defense, Dennis. And the snow, I'm pretty pessimistic about the Rams' chance here. Rams, uh, about half the efficiency of Philly. And in away games, they want to rush a little more, but they don't pass about 13% less in away games. And they're not going to be able to keep up with Philly if they don't pass. So they're going to have to break their tendency. Philly loves home a little bit, 9% better, and they're dynamic, 4 and 9% better. So they can do whatever they need to do. They were improving at the end of the season. Nothing from I could see other than the weather should shut down Philly winning this game.
Yeah, and here's the thing: is this is going to be, does the snow make it tougher to pass? Stafford doesn't have a good record in bad weather
Nope.
either.
Nope.
And that goes back to his Detroit games playing outside in Green Bay and Chicago. So he is perhaps going to be limited.
Yep.
And then you've got Philadelphia's offense that just didn't seem last week very dynamic to get the job done. I mean, they had a big game from Saquon yardage wise, and points wise, they were just struggling to
Yeah.
to put up a big number. So I look at the snow as maybe, maybe the best bet in the snow is to take the under.
Yeah.
Maybe we're looking at a 17-10 game,
Yeah.
something like that. So I don't look for either team to have an advantage in the snow. But I don't look at either team, maybe the Rams have a little bit of a disadvantage in the snow,
Yep.
but maybe it just makes it a game where it comes down to turnovers. But
Right.
I'm looking at a low scoring game here. Gotta like the Eagles at home in this one based on their defense.
Yep. Baltimore Buffalo ends it all Sunday,
Oof.
6:30. So almost a pick 'em, 51. They're playing. Are they playing at Baltimore?
No, they're playing at Buffalo.
Oh, how about the snow there, Dennis?
Just flurries,
Oh,
nothing. But
good.
it's going to be really cold. I mean, by the time the game kicks off, but by the time the game is ending,
Mhm.
it could be as little as 10 degrees, and
Wow.
that's not wind chill, folks. I'm thinking a temperature spread during the game of about 10 to 17.
So they got Baltimore's the road favorite.
Road favorite, yes. They
That
beat
just
they beat Buffalo at home pretty handily, and were
yeah,
able to run on them
yeah.
back then. So
And so the DAPS for Buffalo says you a little bit of toughness, but overall nothing that is extra tough. So I think they'll do their usual. Baltimore gets pretty much play them all, Dennis, except the kicker. So Baltimore, there's nothing to stop Baltimore, and really doesn't seem nothing to stop Buffalo. In other words, it seems that there's nothing in the defenses that are going to prevent the teams from doing what they usually do. Uh, Buffalo loves to play at away, Dennis. So at home they pass a little bit more, but nothing really dramatic. Baltimore pretty much the same. They're able to pass and run in both teams are balanced. In other words, they'll do what they need to do. There's no skew, unlike the game here, Dennis, where Washington looks like they're almost going to have to pass. Whereas here, uh, this may I don't know that 51. It wouldn't surprise me. There's a balance that both teams try to rush with Henry and Cook. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me that it starts slow. Both teams kind of just and then tries to pick it up late. So it wouldn't surprise me that maybe it's only 17, 20 points in the first half. They're just conservative. I don't know. I don't know enough about the coach's tendencies, but that's what it looks to me.
yeah, in this game, it, this is a toss-up game all the way. I could make an argument for either team winning this one. I look at this. eh, I'm just going to simplify it, and I'm going to take the home team here. I'm going to take Buffalo to win this game, but I agree with the under. I think we're looking at a running game more than anything else from both teams, and that's going to shorten the game and shorten the number of possessions. We've seen both teams have these really long drives, these 9, 10, 12 play drives this year. And I think that will sort of shorten this game. It'll shorten the number of possessions that both teams have. I don't think it's going to be a super low scoring game,
Right.
but I think it's going to fail to hit that 51.5 unless we get into a situation where Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson are just trading big plays.
Yeah.
I don't see that happening as much as I see both teams just trying to run and keep the other team's offense off the field. I think it's going to be an entertaining game, but I think it will be under. And I'm going to take all 4 home teams this weekend. They earned home field advantage by being a little bit better all season long. Baltimore has thrown in some really bad games with some really good games this year. Buffalo has played pretty consistent. They've only had a couple of games where they kind of gave them away, and this is going to be a turnover thing. It's whoever wins the turnover battle in this game will win the game. But as cold as it is, I wouldn't be surprised to see a couple balls on the turf.
Somebody said they thought Brady was going to be handling the air pressure on the footballs. Does that help or hurt?
Oh God, that's funny.
Yeah, you
That
forgot
is
about
funny.
that. That's been a while since that controversy.
Yeah.
Folks, if you don't know that, look that up. It was a crazy. I'm still not sure what it all meant. I don't know if it was real or just, it was strange. That was the strangest deflating balls so that people would have an advantage. It's kind of like the Kansas City, what's the script this week for them to win? I mean, it's the same kind of crazy crap that happens out in fandom. But anyway,
Well,
I don't know, Dennis.
hopefully my Chiefs remembered to pay off the officials,
Yeah,
and
I
they'll
haven't seen the script yet. They
no,
say
but
there's the guard alligator down in the swamps guarding the can with the script, so I'm gonna have to pay heavy my voodoo fee if you want that game script before the game starts here. When is it gonna start? A couple hours. So
3:30 start
yeah,
time,
so it's
or
11
yeah, they're
o'clock. Yeah, I guess we need to.
going to be a good game. And Taylor Swift is in the house, so
Ooh,
her man will not allow a loss. And of course,
yeah,
Patrick, he
yeah,
needs this one
yeah,
because he's got another mouth to feed
yeah,
with the birth of his third child. So now Sterling, bronze, and platinum, I guess, are
yeah.
his kids. So,
I don't know.
but
Sterling, bronze, and platinum.
anyway, expecting good things. All I know is it will be thoroughly entertaining. I've got the lucky. I got all the lucky charms in play.
Yeah,
The lucky Chiefs socks will be on at game time.
good.
The Chiefs shirt that is undefeated this year is already on, and I will have the Chester's puff corn for a snack during the game, and they're
No,
undefeated this year
yeah.
when I've eaten the puff corn. So
That's
that's
good. That's good. Well, what does the dog think of the
the
popcorn?
dog loves the puff corn, so
Yeah.
she's pretty happy, and she will be right there. Hasn't had to use. I haven't had to use the lucky husky ears
Okay.
this year. I haven't had to rub the lucky husky ears since that Denver blocked field goal.
Oh yeah, that worked, didn't
That they worked on the Denver blocked field goal. So
it?
the lucky ears
Yeah.
are, they've got a lot
Nice.
of luck left in them
Nice.
for
Nice.
the playoff run. But
Okay.
head on over to the science of fantasyfootball.com. Check out the DAPs from the professor. Check out my consensus ratings article. Hey, come
And
on back.
grade your own teams. I think that was a good idea, wasn't it?
Oh, grading your own teams is very, very important, because how can you understand how to get better
In your dynasty. That's what I'm talking about.
in your dynasty,
Or even your redraft, if you just
even in
kind
your
of want to
redraft?
see, the draft board and see what was going on. What did
And,
the
and
winner, if you didn't win, what did the winners team draft? What were they doing? If it's a home league, you don't want that clown to beat you again, folks. Come
oh
on.
no,
So let's beat him this year. Come on.
and my better than zero,
Or
I'm probably going to tweak to taking one more wide receiver next
Yeah,
season,
yeah.
just to protect myself. But just gonna kind of look at everything that we do, and then of course head on back here next week for another edition of the Science of Fantasy Football.
Get to work, folks. Well, that was fun.
That was a lot of fun.
That was a lot of fun.
That
And you
was a
like
lot of
that
fun.
secret data. Just
I
imagine when
love
I
the
get
data.
all that stuff happening and the tied in. I think there's a lot of interesting
Ooh,
questions we need to think about.
yes,
And
yes, and
I'll try
I
to have all that data. Let's see, I am 2020. So I've got 24, 23,
very good.
22, 21, 20. I got 5 years. I think I'll try 10 years. So I'll have that year to year concept. In other words, if they did good last year, what do they do next year, kind of thing. Just an average. What can we expect, kind of
Yeah,
thing. And
yeah,
and
and
and once we have that, is there a position? In other words, are wide receivers safer? Tight ends less
yes,
safe? I mean, it
yes.
would be glad. I want to know that. And so that's somehow I'm ending up fleshing out the Bush figure first. I'll get to the comms and update all that. But
Yeah,
this
I'm
one was
loving
the
this.
last. This was the less fleshed out, and so I'll have the big database that we'll just add to every year as well. And I do have a Google Drive that
Oh,
I'm
good,
putting
good, good,
stuff
good,
in. So
good,
just for
perfect.
in case the computer blows up, we got a record of some of this stuff.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm really excited about where we're going with this knowledge. I mean, we're just so far ahead of where the average expert is, so self-proclaimed expert. Um, it's scary to me, some of the stuff that we're discovering, because I look at the success we had this year, and we were in a full beta test on that six, consensus off of six things, and
Yeah.
it led to a whole new piece of data during the regular season and a
Yeah.
whole new way of looking at stuff. And it, but it wasn't just like jumping in and overreacting. It was really understanding what the strengths of each of these data sets are,
Yeah.
and understanding that you know each one is good. If a player can survive all six, that's a bulletproof guy, because of the way we're looking at the data in six different ways. And I
Except for
just,
injuries. That's the only
except for
thing. And we
injuries,
can't predict injuries.
you're never going to get around the injury thing. You're
Yeah.
never going to figure out, you know, you're never going to figure out, I don't think, a dynamic of being able to
There are
predict
people out
injuries.
there that have suggested that they've got models and, the age and past history. And I don't know that data, you know, it was
Yeah.
behind paywalls. There's
Well,
some that claim to be predictive of injuries,
Kellogg,
outcomes. I
yeah,
don't know.
Kellogg was showing some interesting stuff where um, there seems to be sort of this magic number of touches that is bad. Like, but again,
I can
is
test that.
is it something that is just a coincidence, or is it something real? I
Well,
don't
that's
know.
that's that's the stat side. I can do that year to year.
Yeah, yeah. So we should probably reach out to him and see how far back his database goes on that,
Yeah, probably should.
and maybe offer to do some testing.
That'd be nice.
But
I think I've got touches. I just I'll have to look in what database that I've done for touches and targets and whatnot. I need snaps. I got to find that. I'm working on the Bush thing right now, but I'll work around to that, probably by the
Yeah,
summer for sure. But I
yeah,
can
that,
test that question.
well, I look at the fact that it's January 18th and we're this far ahead of where we were last year.
Oh yeah,
That, I mean,
we're
we're
moving.
months ahead,
Yeah.
and that doesn't mean we're going to slow down. It means we're going to
No,
have
I'll have
more
time for
stuff
more
that,
stuff. Yeah, I love
yeah,
that. I love
yeah.
that.
I want to
Okay.
get the basics done
Hmm.
so then we can research some
Well, then we'll start
other
filling in
stuff.
the ADPs and start getting some
Correct.
early looks
Yeah.
at some potential bargains and maybe of starting to apply that in best ball or start tweaking
Yeah.
some of the concepts a little bit and kind of just warming up for my flurry of drafts I'll be doing in August there after the expo here. I think we're going to Myrtle Beach first
Oh, that'll be
and
fun.
then heading up to Canton for the expo. So
That'll be a nice trip. I
yeah,
love Myrtle
so
Beach.
we're going to we never been, so we'll check that out and see how all of that's going to go. So we'll have a good time. We'll be going to Alaska in end of May, and then
Oh, wow.
Scotland in June.
Very cool.
So we may have to uh, record a week or two ahead on some of those, so you can. I'll just release it when I can, but we'll try to work that. So
Perfect.
anyway, have some fun. But I'm clearing my decks for the expo, just waiting for the tickets and everything to get going. See what
Yeah,
it's all going to do.
I'm definitely Expo is
Bless you.
Expo is definitely going to be.
Well, I mean, Dennis, I would go without you, but it's not fun. You got to have. I can't
We
have.
got it. Oh,
If I'm
that was
Sonic, I
so
got to
much
have my
fun.
knuckles with me.
That was so much fun
Yeah,
having the two of us, and
yeah. Love
I'll
the
tell
Hall of
you.
Fame, man. We were cutting up
Oh
in there.
God, that was just so much fun.
Yeah, yeah,
It's been a long time since I've had anybody that shares my weirdness
yeah, yeah.
that can just kind of go with the flow. I mean, it's you know,
I'm gonna stop recording in case we
yeah.
have to say bad stuff here, Dennis. Secret stuff.